Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be able to continue our department budget hearings on the mayor's recommended budget for 2016. And this afternoon, rather, we have several kind of related to the finance world. So we're going to be hearing first from the internal audit department, followed by finance property services and IT department, and then the convention center and Meet Minneapolis budget. So with that, I think we can begin by just introducing Mr. Tetzel. You're welcome to begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Quincy. Good afternoon, and I'm Will Tetzel, the Audit Director for the City of Minneapolis. And today I would like to walk you through our 2016 recommended budget. You'll see our org chart is rather simple. This hasn't changed since the prior year, but we report to the Audit Committee with a dotted administrative line to the City Coordinator's office, 2 senior auditor positions, and 2 intern positions.
I didn't understand that. I'm sorry. What was that?
There are 2 senior auditor positions and 2 intern positions.
Thank you.
Currently. Quick summary: our 2015 adopted was $507,000. The 2016 recommended is $592,000. That includes a $75,000 enhancement. And I think the difference there is non-discretionary changes to fringe benefits and other such items.
So it's current. So these aren't additional. This is just additional fund as an enhancement.
Correct.
It doesn't come with anything specific.
It is. I'll get to that. Yep.
Okay.
So our core program is internal auditing, and this program provides independent, objective, timely, and reliable information to city departments, residents, and policymakers regarding risk management and opportunities to improve the city's ability to effectively and efficiently meet its objectives. The department is in a unique position to help functions within the city evaluate high-risk activities or programs and provide insights into opportunities that improve processes or controls to align with an appropriate and reasonable level of risk management. The outcome of this program will enable the city to manage financial, operational, technological, reputational, and regulatory or compliance risks in the achievement of its goals while exemplifying its values. So we provide consultations, audits, performance evaluations, and other ad hoc projects as necessary. Questions?
No, doing fine. Thank you.
We have 3 FTEs, like I mentioned. The goals that we align to are a city that works. Obviously, that's our primary function. But also safety. I feel like that there's risk in safety and equity as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit because equity is such an important goal to the city. We want to at least put a lens on that where appropriate in some of our work, so we can at least inform individuals or departments within the city where we might have opportunities from an equity standpoint in the areas that we're looking at. The $75,000 enhancement that I mentioned before is for IT audit services, and information technology risk management has become critical for organizations to collect, use, and protect digital information. This funding will aid the assessment of the city's general computer control environment and cybersecurity risk management efforts. So we had contracted last year with a local minority-owned business to do IT audit services. That contract will continue this year with this funding. And to give you a sort of an update on our progress this year, our 2015 audit plan, I think we started with 11 projects, 8 of them being consultations. We've completed 5 of those, 6 are in progress. 2 or 3 of those will last well into 2016, potentially 2017. Some of those are related to for example, the police department asked us to help with their records management implementation, and so these things take time, and so they don't conveniently fall within the fiscal years that we operate under. So it might not look like we're completing our audit plans every year, and it's because the projects could stretch over some of the years. We have made changes. We've deferred some projects too and added some new projects. So there's quite a bit of change that, Mr. Chair, you're well aware of. And on to the questions.
Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tetzel, can you go back to the previous slide? So, I understand the history of, I guess, internal audit at the city, or at least the short time before I got here, that we didn't really have that. And just wondering, in terms of projects, what's a typical number or average number of projects that we can expect from our audit departments per year, and what's reasonable?
Sure, good question. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Long. It's hard to say because a project can be huge. It could be something that could take an entire team, an entire year. For example, the Office of Legislative Auditors do performance evaluations, and it can take a team of 3 to 4 people the better part of a year to complete. In my experience, what I try to aim for with projects that are reasonably sized is each full-time equivalent should be able to do about 2 audits per year. So if we have 2 FTEs that are primarily working on audits, 4 there, and then with my assistance, because we're a smaller department, 5 or 6 potentially. If we pick up some smaller consulting engagements, you could add that a little bit. So the 11 that we signed up for this year, knowing that some of them would stretch into future years and some of them would be somewhat small, we signed up for quite a bit, and I think we managed that workload pretty well. Going forward, I'm going to try to be careful because as we continue to get projects under our belt, we'll have follow-up activity and monitoring of changes or the remediation efforts that come from the findings, audit findings or recommendations that we have, and that's a body of work in and of itself. So we have to be cognizant of several things, but a benchmark's about 2 per person. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Tetzel. We may be on track for the shortest one, but we'll see what happens next. Oh, yeah.
Me? Good thing Otto's here.
Yes.
Fix it.
That's not his job until the end of the year, and then he takes over fixing those kind of desktop services. January.
Sorry, it's Friday afternoon. A little levity at a budget hearing.
We expect levity from our Chief Financial Officer talking about finance and the budget. Oh, great. Well, the next department hearing obviously is on Finance Property Services Department, and we're welcoming our Chief Financial Officer, Kevin Carpenter. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the Budget Subcommittee, thank you for hearing our budget presentation today. And before we start, can I just get a check on how long was Will's?
I counted 7 minutes.
So I got 6:59. That's
if you continue to waste time. He didn't use any commas. So.
Just to start with an overview of the organization, it's the Finance and Property Services Department. You'll see our I have 6 direct reports. Just for your information, if you're interested in the FTE counts by organizational unit, Lonnie's administrative support, COMET support area has 5 FTEs. The controller has 68. Enterprise financial management has 29. Property services has 68. Procurement has 25, and treasury has 55. So just to give you a rough guess as to how our human resources are deployed in an organizational chart way. For budget purposes, however, we like all city departments run our budget in a programmatic fashion, and therefore we combine activities that are that go together even if they're in different organizational units. So for example, if you went down to the third line, order, buy, and pay for goods and services, part of that is going to be housed in our procurement department or division, and part of it's going to be housed in our treasury department as our division as it relates to something like accounts payable, for example. And the reason I bring that up, again, is it sort of provides some context behind the major themes of this budget summary page. You will see that the enhancement column here is blank. We have no enhancements built into the budget, but it doesn't mean we are resting on our laurels and not working really diligently to continue our stewardship of city assets. The main highlights here from an overall perspective, if you go down to the bottom, and you will see that our general fund budget year over year is projected to is down approximately $750,000. That is primarily the result of our last program, the ERP support, which had over $1 million in the 15 budget and falls to just over $500,000 in 16. And that's primarily a reflection of the work we needed to do this year to do our COMET upgrade and take the whole system up. So without that resource intensive exercise, we don't need as much money or much appropriation in the ERP program. The other thing of note, in this budget presentation, Finance and Property Services is taking a lead role, as we often like to do, in taking the enterprise we took a $100,000 reduction for right sizing. This concept that we've been talking about a lot, that if there are demonstrated histories that we can't spend all our appropriation, we don't need to keep asking for all of that. So we took an across the board, in effect, $100,000 reduction. It's really a reduction to growth. So if we had a 2% inflation factor in there to do business as usual, we took $100,000 out. So that accounts for some more of the reduction in the general fund amounts. And then you'll see by program, and we'll go through those very quickly in a second, by program, numbers moving up, down, and around as we continually recalibrate where the activities go. So as we look at the controller's division, for example, how much of that is in the accounting and financial reporting program, which on this chart shows going down by $600,000, while at the same time payroll, down a few more, goes up by $400,000. Well, that's simply a reallocation internally from a programmatic standpoint. So from a general fund perspective, that's the story. The big story in the non-general fund is in the third program from the bottom, Facilities, Energy, and Security Management, which you'll see going up from roughly just under $11 million to approximately 14.5. And that is almost exclusively a move from capital budget to operating budget as we take some of the facilities improvement and maintenance costs and take them out of the CLIC capital process, because they aren't the kinds of things we should be bonding for, and embed that in our regular operations to more fully reflect the cost of maintaining and operating our existing facilities. So that in sum is the main highlights of our overall budget. I will go very fast through the individual programs, especially since we don't have enhancements, and just sort of from my chair, the important things to know about what the activities are that go in these programs. You know, accounting and financial reporting. It's all about internal controls, basic accounting and production of the CAFR. You know, there's a number of items on the list that are supported to that, grant accounting, etc. And we spend roughly $6.5 million doing that program. Program 2 is utility billing, pretty self-explanatory. The group of people that process 100,000 individual customer accounts, 5,000 bills a day, $15.5 million of revenue per month. So there's another $5.5 million that go to support that program. Program 3 is order, buy, and pay for goods and services. As I said earlier, that's not only procurement and contracting, but also accounts payable. So there's another $3.5 million there. We continue to work at improving our processes there. That's where a lot of the activity that relates to supplier diversity and equity will show up as we rethink how we buy and secure goods. There's some dated stats on how long we pay invoices. Investment, cash, and receivables. Another $1.5 million in our budget for managing the city's cash resources. We do have a significant cash balance as we need to with as many funds as we have and as many operating variables we have. And these are the people that manage that cash and work with our investment advisors to make sure we're being responsible stewards of those assets. Pay employees, pretty straightforward. Note for the group again that this is one of the functions within Finance and Property Services that serves a universe broader than just the city. We do the payroll for the park board, for example, and other things like that. So that's embedded there. And park board pays us for it, just to be clear.
Yeah. And we touched on it a little bit in the HR department hearing earlier this morning, but a lot of the work that went into this area especially was related to the Comet. Is that correct? That new program? That was a very labor-intensive issue, but I'm assuming...
Mr. Chair, yes. This is, in effect, the base cost of running the payroll. A lot of the incremental cost of doing the upgrade is in our ERP program line. But these are the people who deal with the ramifications of the system upgrade and continually work to be more effective and efficient at our processing of pay-related items. And one of the things that, we've talked a lot about this at the coordinator leadership level, we need to continue to work on there because this is about not just getting the right amount of dollars to individual employees. It's also about making sure we get the right amount of dollars to the IRS, to PARA, to Medica, and all those things that flow through the payroll system that aren't necessarily individual pay.
Mm-hmm. I was just hoping to hear more about how that was really an upgrade in systems and how we're able to do that job more efficiently and effectively in the coming years.
Mr. Chair, that is true. The system and the process discovery work that went into the upgrade does set the table for a much more robust and effective processing. From my chair, we aren't quite there yet, but we just did the upgrade, so now we got to monetize it and work with it. We have a risk management function within the finance program, which deals with workers' comp and small torts and employment compensation. We pay for that largely out of the self-insurance fund. So that's $2 million plus. Strategic financial services. This is budget plus. It's budget and development finance and different things where we're doing longer term forecasting and work on projects to make sure we're investing wisely in our resources, the city's resources, into activities that support our goals. So strategic financial services is just under $3 million. Within the property services division organization, we have the radio communications electronics program that also importantly includes a video component. So if you think about police cars and their consoles, those are all maintained and operated by the radio shop. Radio shop, as it's called, also has a huge role in the 911 communication protocols. We've got a lot of conversations going on with our partners locally and at the state level about how we upgrade the communications protocols within our emergency networks, and that will require some significant investments. Then we have facilities, energy, and security management, the bulk of which is facilities and how we do maintenance. And that division, or this program, of course, includes a staff of custodians and painters and carpenters who maintain and operate the city facilities, but it also has some smaller functions dollar-wise that relate to energy management and how we advance the city's goals there with the city's facilities, as well as security and how security within the city and the city enterprise can work together with MBC and the convention center and other places there. So that's facilities, energy, security management program. Straight pass through of MBC. This is what the city pays to the MBC to, in effect, rent space in this building for city activities. So you'll see that that's just over $5 million a year. And our last program is the ERP application system functional support. Again, heavy, intense consumption of resources, both financial and human, to do our upgrade, which we did. We went live over Labor Day weekend and continue to desire to invest in this process and make sure we're getting the proper leverage out of the new system. Those are our operating budget programs. We have 3 CARS requests, all of them related in different ways to facilities. 2 of them, as you see here, different forms of securities and cameras and surveillance systems, and the last one, a access control system at some other city facilities.
Oh, that's the little pads.
Yeah, your access cards and what kind of readers you have in which facilities and all that.
Very good.
With that, I stand for questions.
That was much longer than 7 minutes, sorry.
Councilmember Yang is keeping track. But,
I would make a motion.
you can't, but go ahead.
I'll just leave then. On a minute per dollar basis.
Oh, yeah.
This is a $45 million budget.
Well, we can't argue with those numbers and leave it to the number guy to come up with the rationale. But thank you very much, Mr. Carpenter. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't take this moment to recognize the fact this is your last day at the city officially. And we can't thank you enough for what you've done for the city as sitting in my chair, but it has been extraordinarily helpful as we shaped the last 2 years' budgets. But as in my previous term, I was just constantly impressed as I was coming on to the council as you were coming on to the city. And the work you did at the police department addressed some big problems that the city was struggling with, and how to budget and how to anticipate those. And those carried over as successful measures, because we wouldn't be talking about program-based budgeting. We wouldn't be talking about long-term budgeting. We wouldn't be talking about a CARS program. We wouldn't be talking about new investment portfolio strategies. We wouldn't be talking about a gazillion things without the leadership and the wisdom and the expertise that you brought to this office. So thank you very much for your service to the city. And we look forward to continued relationships as we continue to make this city great. You took a pretty great city and you made it even better. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for those words. It's been an incredible privilege to serve with all of you and on behalf of the employees here and the residents and all those who come in contact with us. I'm proud of our stewardship.
Well done. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just wanted to echo your comments, and I have to say, of all the departments that showed up, you were the most truthful, because literally, this is your last day. I appreciate that, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Terrific. Mr. Otto Dahl, you will be next as we prepare for that transition to the Information Technology Department. realize you were there. Point out the Information Technology Department seems to be having trouble getting his slides to work.
Never fails.
I had to say it before it was fixed, so
Thank you.
Mr. Dahl, welcome.
Yes, Chair Quincy, members of the Budget Subcommittee, Otto Dahl, Chief Information Officer for the city, and I'd like to go through the information technology budget with you. We have completed a transition and then reorganization of the IT department in preparation for absorbing 2 new functions through our outsourcing transition that we're currently in the middle of. And we are in a position now to support the desk side support requirements for the city's technology, as well as a service desk, if you will, a help desk function for city IT as well. The overall budget, which I'll be going over in more detail through the rest of the presentation, has a net effect of a decrease of 11.7%. And I'll get to the reasoning behind that shortly. There are 3 core programs within IT, the first of which is Decision Support Services. This is an area where we're attempting to not only digitize information to allow our automated systems to assist the city departments in their work, but also creating and delivering tools and applications that allow the city workforce to more effectively and more efficiently do their work. In particular, the budget went up slightly because we shifted some personnel into this area. And in particular, we also have an enhancement in this area, and that deals with the arena of enterprise application support. One of the things that we've seen with departments is their need to access information from many different sources across the city, many different information systems. The city currently makes use of over 450 information systems to run its operations. And in the biz, we call this web services, but it's a technology suite of tools that allows people to more readily and in real time get to information. We get requests from departments such as CPED, where they want to be able to tap into information when they're talking with a developer on a street corner of a proposed development site, or our ability for folks to track a given property across properties across the city that might be considered to be vulnerable in some way. And so what we proposing here is to start delivering more web services so that department employees have a more robust and easy to use interface to more data across the city. The second core program that we have in IT is infrastructure services, and this is much like, if you will, Public Works in their road system. We've got a network, we have various computing devices, whether those are sitting on your desktop where there are server infrastructure that are running those 450 plus applications in the city. And in this area, you'll notice a large decrease in our budget request. This is comprised primarily of the fact that, number one, during this year, we received some one-time money to help us with the transition between outsourcing providers. And also next year, because of that new contract, we will be spending less for the same and actually more services than what we receive today. So the combination of the two provides us with significant savings in this area. We also have an enhancement in this arena, and that deals with a product that we're making use of in IT that helps us manage our workflow. Obviously, IT has to service all the equipment, the applications, various software products, et cetera, that city employees make use of. And so things like our IT ticketing system and other sorts of functions that we performed are being brought up in a information system called ServiceNow that allows us to basically mimic whatever workflow processes that we have established for providing those services to the city. And so what we're looking for is some money for additional licenses. We currently have a project that will be teed up next year for human resources, making use of this product, and we also